What's going on, Zod?
How you doing?
I'm good. We got one of the rising internet celebrities right now. You've been making a lot of noise lately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully, you know what I mean? Trying to grow the platform.
Yeah, I see you. I'm definitely impressed with what I'm seeing. That's what's up, man. All right, well, let's get into it, man. Let's take it all the way back to the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born in Sun Valley, California, but well, as far as like the hospital, but I grew up in between San Fernando and Bocoima. There's other spots that I've stayed in, but for most of my life, it's been in between San Fernando and Bocoima. There's like the main spots where I like really like had a lot of time in.
Okay, so Sun Valley, right? That's
Yeah,
where your hood's at, right?
yeah.
Right. Okay, at what point did you get there?
Well, you know what? I think I had lived in Sun Valley sometime before that, but like I didn't really move back to Sun Valley until like around, I think it was like 88, 87. I moved into my neighborhood, which is Sunland Park. And then from right there, I stayed in the Sunlands until like 95 to be exact. But during that time, I was like pretty much in and out of jail, you know what I mean? Like as far as like juvenile hall and all that, camps. Yeah, so yeah, around 80, 87, 88, I moved to the Sunlands. That's when my mom got accepted. Yeah.
Okay, well, what was it like growing up there at that time?
You know what is crazy? The Sunlands in Sun Valley was so diverse that it was just, for the most part, all we did in the Sunlands was run around and play cap guns. I mean, they had elements of gang, which was like mostly like the Bocoima Pyrus were like really deep in there. Lynn Dog and all them, rest in peace. And then you had some Crips that lived there, and then you had my homeboys at that time. I don't think they had been Sunland Park at that time for like not that long. It was another vodka entirely like different. You know what I mean? When the homies had came down from Los and switched it up. But yeah, the Sunlands was good. I mean, for the most part, everybody just ran around playing sports. That's why everybody in the Sunlands were good at sports. We played baseball, we played football, tackle, pads. A lot of people play for teams around that area. So yeah, the Sunlands were good. Outside of like the little drama that used to take place, it was a good place to raise your kids. You know what I mean? There's a lot. So I say there's a lot of you were afforded a lot of opportunities right there. It was just your choice whether you wanted to take them or not.
Okay, so at what point did the gangs and everything start coming in?
It's well, Sunland Park had been there, you know what I mean? And like I said, there was other hoods there. At one time, Sun Valley, when we got along, everybody was right there. Like you could go to my neighborhood and run into Violent, us, Diablos, and a few other neighborhoods, Soul. But for the most part, it was just Sunland Park. But I don't even think I was there a year before I got into my hood. Like it was really quick, but I was already wanting to bang anyway. You know what I mean? So like when my homeboy asked me what's up, it's one of those things that was just kind of like a no-brainer. I just basically asked for just a little bit of time.
Okay, so this was around 88, 89?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is around 88, 89. You get jumped in, and it's a Mexican neighborhood.
Yeah. There was in the Sunlands, there was fools that at one time I thought my homeboy Cuca was from my neighborhood, but turns out he wasn't. He was like from Clanton or something. But and another homie that I never thought got jumped into my neighborhood actually did, and that was my homeboy Stranger, which was like a straight rider. My homeboy Stranger was like a rider and then some, but I think it's just because where he grew up before the Sunlands was Chicago, so he was like really with that business. Like that's who I kind of like idolized in my neighborhood. Him and my homeboy Blaze. Blaze was more of the type that he used to like to fight, and he was known for wearing gangster boots and kicking in your balls when it was time to get down. But my homeboy Stranger is the one that just like I gravitate to because he was just one of those. He was one of those types that just solid. Like there was no cracks in his foundation. Like who he was around. No matter what time of the day you caught him, he was always that fool. Like really, really, really turned up. So yeah, that's who I idolized from my neighbor. But as far as like The rest is mostly Mexicanos. My neighbor is pretty much predominantly Mexicanos. We had maybe a couple of Salvadorians. We had like I think one Chapin, which is a fool from Guatemala, but pretty much my whole neighborhood is Mexicanos. Like I think we got one black dude now. You know what I mean? But he grew up when, you know.
Right, right.
So yeah, yeah. But yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. So, at what point did you start going to jail?
I actually started going to jail immediately. The probably around I think 88 or 89. I think I was like 10 the first time I went to juvenile hall, and it was for striking up my neighborhood on the wall at a school called Valley High School, which is funny because years later I would get a lot of time for beating up my principal right there, but it's because they slammed me up against the wall. But that's a whole different story. But yeah, that's like the first time I really went to juvenile hall for tagging. And when I first got there, people were like, "Oh, you're here for tagging," but they didn't understand that I was tagging up my neighborhood because I was still claiming at that time.
So,
So I was
hold on. How old were you when you got jumped in?
10, 10 going on 11.
Were
What?
you were there any other kids that young? Were you the only
Yeah,
one?
I was. It's funny because at that time, like, there's a guy named Jerron Brickneck, and me and him used to be at odds so much, but I think it was more like competition between us. We're cool, but there was like a lot of competition between us. So we played football and everything. Like I played for the West Valley, I think West Valley Trojans, but I had to drop that because it was adversity. You know what I mean? It was too much. I was the only homie on the team, and being black and being from a Mexican gang, and my team was nothing but blacks. That caused issues. So eventually, I had to drop that, and plus, I stayed going to jail. You know what I mean? I pretty much, yeah, I stayed going to jail. It's just once I went that first time, it just after that it was just an ongoing thing. You know.
So you go to jail for tagging, and you're at this point you're already involved in the gangs.
Yeah.
When you get out? What are you doing? What's going on at this point?
You know what? When I first got busted, I was still a little nervous because I already knew what I faced. So after talking to a few cats, like I think I talked to a dude from Young Boys, white dude, real big. They were going to YA, him and the homie from Cyprus, and I would just basically like going trying to pick their brain and about what the shit entails, like what a motherfucker's gonna have to go through, and basically just talking to them cats, just it was right there was like my decision just to just keep that shit my neighborhood and just like fuck it all. So when I got out of juvenile hall after that time, I was wild. Smoking sherm, getting high, drinking, banging. Like it was just something different. Change. It's like once I got my foot wet in juvenile hall and got my first couple of fights, which my first fight was with a dude from Byland. Like bust his mouth all, like bust him up. That was like my first like real good fight, and then a couple with like some crib dudes. But yeah, once I got out, I was just me.
So this is like 11, 12, and 13.
And I'll tell you something. When I got out and I was doing my thing, at that time my neighborhood, like as far as like the youngsters, they weren't really putting in the work. We did a lot of boxing with each other, like if we were training or something. So once I hit 11 and it still wasn't what I thought, I got jumped out. I didn't want to be from the neighborhood. I wanted to bang, and they weren't banging at all. They weren't banging at all. Fights and all that, like that was different. But as far as like trying to go put in work, they weren't doing that. So I got jumped out. But what's crazy is like maybe like 3 weeks later, I got jumped back in, and
Oh,
that's when everything just like really went. That's when the homies just went like wild, as far as like the youngsters.
So what was one of the most craziest things you seen during that time that you can talk about?
Well, as far as from my neighborhood, probably like the one of the craziest things that happened is when the homeboy died, but he blew his shit out. Like he blew his own brains out. You know what I mean? Everybody knew it was leading up to that point because he was erratic, and I mean, that was one of the things as far as like my neighbor. That's like the first loss I seen from a homie. I've seen family members die. My family are Pacoima Piru, so I've seen a lot of them die. I went to a lot of wakes, didn't really do funerals, so I was already used to that aspect. But I think the craziest thing I've seen, but not like witnessed, but
Well, during that time.
uh,
What happened? How come he committed suicide?
man, there's so many different factors into it. A lot of people thought it was just because he was depressed. He was just, and I could say he was, but it was other elements involved that drove him to that point. But people thought he had got past it the first couple of times he tried crazy stuff, but he never got past it. And,
Oh, okay.